All right, so I'm looking at my blood again. I'm just kind of curious, not doing anything right now, so I thought I'd throw some up and see if there's, what exactly is going on with it. Um, so right off the bat, before I even scroll around, we'll see if this checks out as I scroll around. But it looks like the cell walls are a little firmer. I've been doing a lot of B complexes and a couple other things. I'm going to share one of them with you here in a minute. Um, that really helps with the development of your cells. This guy here is that's a white cell. Educated guess, probably a monocyte. Again, I talked about in the last video. You can't tell conclusively without staining and going through a more elaborate process. But when we guess on these things, and then we get back lab reports, we're usually pretty close about that. So, anyways, but yeah, if you're dealing with something serious, you need to know for sure. You got to go through a different process. So another monocyte. So if I keep finding a ton of monocytes in here, that's going to make me very suspicious that my body's fighting something viral right now. And there's a lot of stuff going on. Hard for me to tell because I still have some residual effects from my, the breathing thing that I went through from the reaction to the meds. That said, it's a lot better. First time I've coughed today, so sorry. So my overall picture here, and it hasn't been very long, but those cells are looking a lot better than they have in the last few times I put these things up. So I'm pretty happy about that. I don't know if you guys can see in the screen here, but there's these little guys kind of swimming, jumping around. It looks like something alive in there. It's actually not. They are triglycerides. And kind of interesting, what they're moving from is something called Browning motion. And you actually have an electrical field that surrounds these cells, and there's enough of that field there that it actually interacts with these little triglycerides. I just ate something, you can see. And that's what's moving them around. So it kind of creates the illusion that there's something alive swimming around in there, but that's not what's going on. So I'm going to look in here because I can see a much larger field. So everything's about direction. And from what I'm seeing so far, I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing. Another white cell there. And as we've talked about before, man, I've had some really big issues. This is a thing that when you opt in for doing the traditional treatments, it really takes a toll on your not only your white cells but all your cells in general. So it looks like all that's kind of coming up a bit. Trying to focus in on this a little bit here. So I'm looking around, seeing what kind of crazy stuff I can find. I will say too, when I'm scrolling around on this, the background looks a lot better than it did before. We just saw all kinds of cell fragmentation and all kinds of things floating around. It was really kind of dirty looking. And so my body's obviously doing a fairly good job cleaning a lot of that kind of stuff out. And that lines up with how I feel too. So cool. So that little guy, oh, where'd he go? That, you see these like little spaces in here. This one's probably, I'm guessing, a basophil, and they like to go after allergens and things like that. But you have a certain amount of them that just kind of hang out or on patrol. It doesn't look like, sometimes I'll throw slides up on people and you'll see them just scattered. Like you can't move the frame without seeing a ton of them. So that tells you that they probably have some kind of allergic reactions going on or some kind of histamine response. So anyways, I think this stuff's interesting. So, all right, I can put this aside and just decide that I'm fairly happy with the direction that's moving in. I think this one's about ready. It's got to be completely dry for you to be able to read it. Now let's see what it looks like. So I got to switch my objectives here. And we're going to change my deck. And we're going to bring that light way down. And I'm going to get tuned into, there we go. So now I know I got a pretty good amount of light. And bam, dried blood. So let me see what we've got here. So I'm looking at my first drop. And this is not good, okay? And I'll tell you a couple things here and kind of point out some stuff that I'm seeing. But even though, I'm saying this isn't really, great, because I still have a lot of this oxidative stress, this free radical damage that's going on. And that said, this is way better than some of the other slides that I've thrown up, and this is a fairly short amount of time. So if this remains consistent with what I'm looking at, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but fingers crossed. And this pattern that I'm looking at right here, and this totally checks out. Looks like somebody just shot it with a shotgun, right? When you see that kind of blast pattern going through there, that is very typical of an adrenal stress pattern. And, I'm sure that my cortisol levels are low right now, which is really usually the culprit for that stuff. I'll do another video and talk about cortisol at some point in time, but there's like a ton of misconceptions about that's been pumped out by some not good supplement companies. But yeah, the cortisol is low. I have actually been on dealing with my lung condition. It was serious enough that I actually went on prednisone for a while, which that really messes with that part of your endocrine chain and dealing with like the catabolic steroids that manage inflammation and stress and whatnot. So, which cortisol plays a huge role in, but all that kind of crashes when you're on prednisone. So as I come off of it. So yeah, this is staying pretty consistent. I'm actually a little bit surprised at how much this is cleaned up. I'm seeing, I talked about in one of the videos, these little crystal looking bubble things. Those are sialic acid beads, and they can be caused by a lot of different things. It's pretty typical to see that in people that have cancer. If you see those, it doesn't mean the person has cancer necessarily, but people that have cancer tend to have a lot of sialic beads in there. And I'm interested in this because I remember what it was looking like before, and that's a lot lower. So pretty happy about that. A lot of the things that we're doing feel like they're working. Next drop over. Yeah, again, this is pretty consistent to the first drop. So I'm really happy. Yay. I'm going to get back to my amazing looking blood that I used to be able to throw up here all the time. Man, once something gets off, it changes quick. And, we just, we need to kind of have an idea of what's going on in our bodies. That's a big part of preventing these types of diseases. And, if you do have it, we want to be able to get down to root cause, which is something that if you're going through cancer, your oncologist is not going to entertain this conversation. So just be aware of that. But you got to get down to root cause. You got to figure out, why did you get this? And, that's been quite a puzzle. And I actually had one of my doctors go through this, go through my family history, go through everything, the type of cancer placement, all the different factors involved with this. He ends up, sits back in his chair, he throws the file on the desk, and he goes, this whole case is just weird. And so since then, we've been, really working on trying to figure out, why did this come around? And I actually think I have a pretty strong handle on why that happened. That's going to be another video, but I want to share it with people because it's super important and, could very well affect you directly because it's from something that's pretty freaking common. And, I had no idea. So yeah, still seeing that same consistency going through there. So this drop, I put a really giant, I don't usually do this, but I threw a really big drop down here on the bottom of the slide because I was just curious. But I can't really read this very well because it's not complete. See, once it starts drying, you start seeing the fibrin mesh start to, present itself. But when the blood's still drying, you don't really see that pattern. So I don't really know how it's going to connect through here. Maybe it doesn't connect at all. I don't think it's a very good drop to screen. So we're just going to ignore that one. So things that I do. So here's something I'm going to share with you that I do. It makes a really big difference. I've got a couple other videos on this. If your body is not sleeping, it is not repairing. Bottom line, I don't care if you're training for Olympic gold or dealing with cancer. This is paramount. And this also plays a role in helping build up my blood cells. It helps on a lot of different levels. I have some other videos out. I'm going to be doing some more that are more related to this. I'm talking about cancer. I'm not telling you that this stuff cures cancer, so just don't. It's just a supplement and it's supportive. And it is the product that I put together and I've had out for quite a while. It's helped hundreds of people with a lot of different conditions. And again, because it gets down to root cause. A lot of times people start having sleep disorders and things like that, and then that opens up the doorway for all kinds of different diseases going on. And I've been asking people, I need your help. Donations that come through my GoFundMe, it's huge. Most everything I'm doing right now is all out of pocket, and I haven't been able to work, since, I think May. So that's taken a pretty big hit. So thank you for that. But another thing we can do, and we can help each other, and I'll put up the link to rejuvenate.bio and go there and pick up a jar of this, and it helps me and it's going to help you out too. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this. If you have questions, throw them up in the comments. I love it when you guys ask me questions. And until next time, it's just a ride.